I love Deep Purple so much that every time that I listen to them, I don't listen to them from the fan perspective. I listen to them from a much more academic perspective. I learn from them. Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be analyzing, reacting and blasting the fantastic track that is Stormbringer by Deep Purple, one of my favorite bands ever. And spoiler alert, is one of the bands that I rarely play when I listen to music, but I will explain that to you once this analysis is over because I got a very good reason for that. So with that being said, let's get into it. But before we go, if this is your first time on the channel, I welcome you because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, but using language that everybody can understand in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production and songwriting. So with that being said, let's rock and roll. Here we go. So here we go, Stormbringer by Deep Purple. Sorry for interrupting, but you know the drill. Badass, right? If this is the first time you listen to this track, well, you're welcome. This is fantastic. It's such a great song. The first thing that I want to point out is the fantastic use of the vocals. They are super, how can I put it? Energetic, drawing plenty of attention to them, but without becoming distracting, because the instrumentation is excellent. The introduction has this particular use of a synthesizer. I don't know what kind of synth they use for this one, because you can hear that when they're playing the ta-na-na-na-na-na, there is a little bit of an extra push from an instrument that sounds kind of like a vowel-like sound, and it's coming from a synthesizer. Don't know which one they use. Probably they use something similar to this, like a Moog or something, but if you happen to know the details, please let me know. Because I think, if I recall correctly, this is the first time in Deep Purple's history that they used a synthesizer to this extent. It's not the first time they used one, but I think it's the first one that it became that prominent in the mix. Now, talking about keyboards, John Lord. The organ is excellent, don't you think? So well done. It's one of the things that I like about Deep Purple so much, is the use of the organ alongside the guitar, creating this super thick, heavy sound that doesn't have any right to be this good, right? It's fantastic. And it has plenty of personality, and probably the reason why I have this fascination with the use of organ in rock music. It simply works, and they proved it. It's these guys on the Doors, of course, who made it a super common instrument among rock ensembles, at least during this period. But I think Deep Purple took it to a different level, because of how, and don't get me wrong, the Doors and their use for the organ is fantastic. It's probably the most quintessential element of their music. But in this case, while the Doors is very intellectually driven and very much atmospheric and beautiful sounding, with Deep Purple you get an organ that is aggressive, almost in the same vein and character and timbre and texture-wise as they use for the guitar. Don't you think? Tell me what you think about that. Because it truly feels like another guitar. Now, the vocals, as I mentioned, they are so cool. If I recall correctly, this is the second album with David Coverdale, right? And it's fantastic. He sounds very much like a proper rendition. Well, he sounds like a vocalist that should be part of Deep Purple. Adding plenty of personality, and his voice and his vocal style reflects beautifully the intent of the music, don't you think? And also Glenn, he's playing bass, right, in this one, and also he's singing the backing vocals. He's as good as a singer as he is as a bass player, right? Incredible. And he's singing the high notes. That's a fact because he's still active, and his vocals haven't gone to are still as good as usual, for real. He's incredibly talented, and also his range is so high, but he sings in such a beautiful way, and him with David Coverdale is like a match made in heaven. Now, I wanted to pay attention to something very interesting because I'm gonna press play very soon, but I want you to pay attention to this. The drums, try to describe them next time or in your head while the track's playing, and try to see if you can use some form of wording to describe the sound. Try to think in terms of size, right? And also try to see how close or how far are they from you. I know, but it's kind of esoteric, but you see what I mean. And truly, try to do it because it actually will help you to understand a little bit much more of the details and the techniques that I will explain later on the video. So, with that being said, let's keep rocking. This song is badass.
Stallion twister, red, black, white around the eye of the sky. Stormbringer coming down, needing to stay. Thunder and lightning heading your way. Ride the rainbow, rock the sky. Stormbringer coming, time to die.
What a good track this is, right? So good. Everything about it is fantastic. I tried to draw your attention to the use of the stereo field, which stands for, of course, the stuff that happens on one side or the other when it comes to your speakers or your headphones. And it was very creative. For example, there were points in which they used the vocals singing some of the verses. You got information or sound coming out of both the speakers at the same time. I mean, the voices, of course. And they expand the sound of the music beautifully. Also, you saw at the very end how they added this guitar sound, the wah-driven guitar effect, pushed on the right, letting the song feel even bigger, and also kind of allowing for the very complex arrangement that was taking place at that point, musically speaking, to feel more fleshed out and also not cluttered. Does that make sense to you? Good. Now, the question I asked you a few minutes ago: how could you define the sound of the drums? In my head, they feel tiny but close. But not tiny in the sense of it being minuscule. They are not big. That's what I meant. Why? Because they are loud enough for me to hear them correctly, but they are not that bombastic sounding. They're not that loud. That's why they feel a bit small. But also, they feel close to me because you couldn't hear that much of a room sound. It doesn't sound like John Boham's drumming. Think of, I don't know, Dire Maker. That sounds gigantic, right? But in this case, it feels super, super close. And that gives the song a little bit more of an impact, a little bit more powerful, even though the sounds of the drums are not that loud. They're not that pushed into the mix. Very clever. It's something interesting. And I assume this is due to the fact that when recording, and this is totally my headcanon, I have no idea, this is just out of my own conclusions after listening to the track, probably they recorded the drums in a very isolated environment that remove some of the banging being reflected by the room, so the drums feel more self-contained. And it's kind of common during this period because this is the mid 70s, so it was kind of a common technique to kind of record drums in such a fashion. Because you can also think of another album, Eye in the Sky by Alan Parsons. I know it's a little bit later down the line, but also has a similar sound, not equal, because in that one, for example, the snare is tiny sounding, but in this case, we got a snare that is punchy enough. It's not super loud, it's not in your face, but it's there. And also the fact that the drum sound is not expansive sounding allows for the rest of the instrumentation to be much more prominent. Because now, thinking in terms of this exercise, the sound of the guitar is super close to you, right? Like very much at the forefront. The vocals are not as prominent. You can understand everything being sang, but you, not necessarily speaking, feel it like here. Like what happens with a record, I don't know, like Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. As soon as Axel begins singing, you feel the vocals like he's almost here shouting at you. And it's part of the fact, right? But in this case, the vocal arrangement feels like it's surrounding you. Giving this kind of, how can I put it, more esoteric, more spiritual sound? I don't know. Let me know what you think about the term. And also, I think that it's either double vocals or both Glenn and David were singing at the same time for the vast majority of the song. Because it feels like it, don't you think? Has this kind of weird, not necessarily speaking precise sound coming out of the vocals. And it gives the impression of it being either doubled or both of them were singing the entirety of the time. Let me know if you happen to know. Now, let's take a look at the screen because it's time to talk about the mix itself. Over here we got Decibel, is the tool that you have been looking at since the beginning of this analysis. And this tool allows us to use a visual medium to analyze and understand what's going on with the music that we're listening to. And in this case, we got the first section, which is our frequency range analyzer, which through the use of this white line shows us how loud each of the frequencies that are part of the human hearing range, which stands for 20 all the way down to 20,000 hertz, were at their highest point. And yes, you can see that this is very much a result of its era. And this is something that I happen to be a huge fan of. I know this might mean little to you, but you will know why it's so important to me right now. This is the thing. Modern records tends to have a huge push here, the low area, the lows. This is where you get the punchiness, the heaviness, and the heft of the music. Usually controlled, and should usually be controlled by the sound of the kick drum and the bass, and all of the different elements that are part of that register, of course. And we don't have that much, because see how it fares in comparison to the mid region, which is where most of the action that our human ears can understand and likes to pay attention to. That's where you find the snare, the cymbals, and also the guitars and the vocals. And these being such a very guitar-heavy or guitar-driven track, it's very important for them to be that prominent. And this is probably the reason why we got, when we started analyzing this track together, uh, we discussed the idea of the drums being not that big, while the guitars feel much more prominent. And it makes sense because, well, Ritchie Blackmore is famous for not only being a fantastic guitar player, but also kind of difficult to work with. So I can imagine that, no, I want more guitars, so push them in. But I don't know. Please let me know if you happen to know more details about it. But you see that we got plenty of beautiful mid-range presented to it. And the reason why I love this approach so much, it's because music sounds more realistic. Let me explain. This record is clearly super doctored. The mix is very good, so they truly worked on it a lot. The thing is that the process and the ambition during the production probably, or not probably, it's a fact. It sounds like this. Was driven by capturing the essence of the band properly rather than making an expanded version of the sound of the band. There's nothing wrong with that, but I happen to be much more of a fan of this approach, keeping it real, if you want to use that terminology, while also adding this extra push. Why? In my head, a properly recorded and produced record should be an approximation to what it is to be in front of the band, performing and knocking your socks off by playing freaking awesome music, right? Rather than making an enhanced version of what this could be. Get me? So when you're working in the studio, when you're working with tools like this and stuff, your objective should be trying to break the barrier, the whole notion of disbelief for the audience or the listener when enjoying their music, to truly be immersed by the emotional impact of the track. And you use tools and techniques just to make the sound of the record to be as close as possible to the real deal, which would be enjoying the actual performance and the artistic expression of the musicians on the stage. But that's just me. And in here, we got pretty much that. Also, not shrieky high end, but it's a little bit more enhanced than some of the records we have analyzing here, because you cannot say that this record sounds warm using a little bit of that audiophile terminology. This kind of punchy, energetic, exciting, and fun, right? And it's not that rolled off. The high end is not that rolled off. We got the right amount, but it's a little bit higher than some other records we have analyzed here, with respect of the rest of the mix. Okay, now we understand this. Let me take you to the second section of our analyzer. This guy over here is the dynamic range analyzer, and through the use of this blue blob, we will see how loud the song has been throughout time. The higher it goes, the louder the song was. Why is that important? Super important, because you will understand why you tend to hate if you happen to love this music or you have discovered these songs before they got remastered, and why you hate some of those remastered versions. Dynamic range stands for the correlation between the highest point in volume with the lowest point in volume. Why is that? Because depending on how loud a signal is, we will, as human beings, understand it and have a different emotional reaction to it. Okay? So you can imagine that when something is quiet, it's much more personal, sexier, and even scary sounding, right? And when something is louder, of course, it's gonna feel more bombastic, more energetic, more powerful, and blah, blah, blah. So what happens is that most remasters tend to make everything louder, and by definition, and through the use of the techniques required to be able to make something louder, you will little by little reduce that difference, that dynamic range, removing a good chunk of the emotional impact of the music that you love so much by making it louder. It's annoying. I happen not to be a fan, and sadly, we are dealing with a remastered version. But luckily for us, it's not a terrible remaster. According to this thing, it was remixed by Glenn himself. And I gotta say that this is actually very good. I like the sound of this remaster. It's properly done. Because we have and still preserve some of the dynamic range, but still making it louder. Because it's still possible. You can make things louder without ruining that dynamic range. And here, we can see that the introduction, you got peaks and valleys. Very important, because of course the peaks is moments of actual energy, and then the valleys are the moments on which we go a little bit lower in volume. This is the introduction. Say, and then we get into the verse. You see how the verse is not as loud as the introduction. Why? Because the introduction is meant to draw your attention, get you into the song. And then verse, proper energy, and little by little building up, just for it to ramp up for the first chorus. And the action, super intense, just for it to drop once again, for it to ramp up, for us to be hit with the next introduction to the main melody. Now, taking us to the next section. See how the track, what used to be the loudest point, became kind of a standard, because this is the second verse. Why is that important? In mind that you were watching, remember what I said about the role of the producer and the mixing engineer, which is enhancing and trying to get as close as possible to the live performance, right? Through the use of a recorded method. When the band is playing live and the song progresses, they will get more emotional. They will get more excited. They will put more emphasis, more energy to the song. Through the use of volume, you can recreate or emulate that effect and that raw, visceral experience. So you see here that the second verse is louder because they are already there, right? They are in the zone. And see how loud the second chorus is compared to the first one. Check this out. Insane. I know, it looks tiny, but believe me, this is actually the reason why the second chorus hit you even harder than the first one, because you didn't realize it. The increment in volume was so subtle and so well done. Masterful. Great taste. Well done by Glenn Hughes. Now, this is the drop before the solo, and the solo was excellent. How I haven't mentioned it. Incredible use of melody and understanding of music theory by, of course, is Ritchie Blackmore. His guitar tone is easy to recognize, fantastic, sounds amazing, and this is a masterclass on songwriting. Incredible. And coming back to the mix, you'll see that the track itself keeps developing momentum, but see how beautiful the interaction of the moments happen. Because the solo had moments of intensity, moments of much more introspective sounds and mysterious, for it to be just getting us ready to the grand finale, which gives us this fantastic crescendo, incremental in energy and sound, and delivering that fantastic resolution. What a great song this is, don't you think? 4 minutes, and they deliver all of what I said, and there's even more stuff. But if I keep talking about it, I will spend like 3 hours. Because as I said in the introduction, I love Deep Purple, and I never listened to them, not because of, I know it sounds contradictory, but when we were having this discussion in one of the live streams, I mentioned that I love Deep Purple so much that every time that I listen to them, I don't listen to them from the fan perspective. I listen to them from a much more academic perspective. I learn from them. Every time I listen to their music, I simply discover more from every angle, from the production perspective to the musicianship, the songwriting perspective as well, to the interaction between the band members, everything. Of course, singing as well. Being a singer myself, damn it, so many things to learn from these guys. Great band. I think they deserve much more praise than they got. And also, they are much more than a smoke in the water, obviously. And I know they have their legacy very, very well recognized and stuff, but I think they deserve more. But what do you think? Tell me. Once again, if you like to support this channel, the best way to do it is by leaving a like. Please do it, because it's the only way for this video to reach more people, more Deep Purple fans, and especially those who are not haven't yet discovered Deep Purple. I think this one of the reasons why I do this is because I want more people to enjoy better music, and this one being one example of that. So please help us by simply liking. Somebody will find the video thanks to your support. And also, it helps quite a lot the channel, so please do it. Also, leave comments, because also that helps us, and I will be more than glad to see and interact with you in the comment section below. So, with that being said, the only thing left to remind it is that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about, and remember that I will see you when I see you.